In a move that has sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles worldwide, King Charles III has made an unprecedented visit to Russia, meeting with President Vladimir Putin in an urgent attempt to negotiate a ceasefire in the ongoing war in Ukraine. The royal visit, shrouded in secrecy until the very last moment, marks the first time a British monarch has stepped foot in Russia since Queen Elizabeth II's reign, underscoring the gravity of the situation and the importance of the mission at hand. The king, who has long been an advocate for peace, climate change action, and global unity, arrived in Moscow amid heightened tensions between Russia and the West. His visit comes at a time when relations between the United Kingdom and Russia remain strained due to sanctions, diplomatic expulsions, and conflicting geopolitical interests. However, despite these challenges, the king's arrival was met with a grand yet cautious reception, signaling that the Kremlin was willing to entertain discussions, even if only symbolically. Reports from Buckingham Palace indicate that King Charles took it upon himself to make the journey after extensive consultations with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Foreign Secretary David Cameron. While the British government has consistently maintained a hardline stance against Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the king's diplomatic approach has been seen as an independent and humanitarian effort, separate from governmental policies but aligned with the broader goal of achieving peace. His role in the matter is not one of political enforcement, but rather one of moral persuasion, hoping to leverage centuries of diplomatic tradition and personal influence to foster dialogue. Upon landing in Moscow, the king was greeted by Russian officials and escorted under heavy security to the Kremlin. His meeting with President Putin was held behind closed doors, with only a select few aides and interpreters present. The discussions, according to sources close to the delegation, were lengthy and intense, with King Charles expressing deep concern over the humanitarian crisis caused by the war. He emphasized the immense suffering of civilians, the destruction of cities, and the global economic repercussions of the conflict. It is understood that King Charles appealed to Putin's sense of history and legacy, urging him to consider his place in world history and the potential for lasting peace rather than prolonged destruction. The monarch, known for his eloquence and deep understanding of geopolitical history, reportedly referenced past conflicts and the lessons learned from history's greatest leaders who chose diplomacy over continued bloodshed. Statements from the Kremlin remained vague. Sources suggest that Putin listened attentively, though he remained steadfast in his stance that Russia's actions in Ukraine were justified. However, the fact that such a meeting took place at all has been interpreted by analysts as a small yet significant opening in an otherwise rigid diplomatic deadlock. The international community has responded to King Charles's visit with a mixture of admiration and skepticism. Some leaders have praised his efforts as a bold and necessary move, demonstrating the role that monarchy can still play in global affairs beyond mere symbolism. Others, however, have questioned whether the visit will yield any tangible results, given the complex political realities surrounding the war. Ukrainian officials, while acknowledging the king's intentions, have been cautious in their response, emphasizing that any discussions about peace must prioritize Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. In the streets of London, the British public has reacted with a mix of hope and concern. Supporters of the king's mission believe that his status as a global figure of unity could serve as a catalyst for further negotiations, while critics argue that the visit might inadvertently lend legitimacy to Putin's regime. Nonetheless, Buckingham Palace has reiterated that King Charles's actions were guided solely by a desire to promote peace and alleviate human suffering. As King Charles prepares to leave Moscow, the world watches closely to see what, if any, impact his visit will have on the ongoing war. The outcome remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: in making this bold journey, King Charles III has reaffirmed his commitment to using his influence for the greater good, embracing the responsibilities of his reign not just as a ceremonial figure, but as a force for peace in turbulent times.